you've always been speaking about the waiting period on your social media pages. So of course, it's good to finally meet in person. It's really good. Thank you so much for everything that you do. So how did you come about talking about the waiting period? What does the waiting period mean to you?
Okay, thank you very much.
You tell us your name, obviously. I know your name is Wande, but
All right, my name is Olawande.
Olawande, not you Wande.
No, Olawande. And I'm popularly known as the waiting season bestie.
Okay.
So during my single days, I went through a lot of bad experiences. Some were good,
okay,
but I had more of the bad experience, in fact ugly experience as well. So during this period, you know how Nigeria or maybe Africa as a whole has put a peg to 30 as you have to be married before 30. So I crossed the age of 30 and I was still not married. And so when I crossed the stage and it wasn't happening and it was looking like it's going to take forever, eventually God did it, but it was past that it was past that age, that African deadline. Let me put it on African deadline. So when after I got married, I got this direction from the Holy Spirit, or an instruction from the Holy Spirit, to start to encourage single people who are trusting God for a future partner, because I have worked in that shoes and I know how it feels. So that was how I got into the
Thank you for sharing that. We have this idea of putting deadlines. Oh, I'm 35, I don't have a family. I'm 30, I'm not married. I'm close to 40, I don't have a house or a solid business. So when you were approaching 30, or when you were 30, do you have someone that you were dating? And if you didn't have someone that you're dating, how was it? How was that moment for you?
All right, so when I was approaching 30, I was seeing someone, I was dating someone, and it made my experience, my journey even more tough, because when you are with someone and the relationship wasn't progressing.
Wow.
So that was the situation I was, and it wasn't even looking like it's going to progress. There was no hope in the relationship. So when I was clocking 30, it made it tough, because if the relationship was looking like promising or something, or there's a date we are trying to work towards, I won't really be bothered when I was clocking 30. But because I knew that I was in a very terrible situation and it wasn't looking like it's coming forth. So at that period, it was very tough for me, and a lot of singles can actually resonate with this. It was a period of 2 weeks to my 30th birthday. I was depressed.
Wow.
That was the very first time I can say that I was really, really depressed. I couldn't go to church. My pastor called. I said I didn't have transport fare. It was just a very terrible period for me, especially the 2 weeks. It just looks as if, you see this deadline, it gets into people's head, because you feel like you are worthless if you have not achieved certain things before 30. So for me, because I had a very good job then, for me it was marriage. And I was dating someone, but it wasn't looking like it was going to work. So it was a very tough period for me.
How did you transition from that status to another status? What was it like when you met your present husband, or what helped you? What was the role of your faith or family, or did you have any support system during that time?
I had a group of friends that were very supportive. My elder sister too was very supportive. There were times that they knew that things were not going on well, so my friends were very supportive. I had like about 3 or 4 of them then were very supportive, and my faith played a very large role. Because for people that know my story, especially there was one I posted a time about fasting for 50 days for a guy that did not marry me. So I clocked 30 November, a year, the previous year's November. The following year, that was 2 months after January, that was when there's this general fasting where churches. So my church was going for a 50 days fasting, and I dedicated that time to fast for the guy to marry me. So just to cut the long story short, apparently God worked out that fasting period. He answered my prayer, but not what I was expecting. So after the fasting period, it was a lot of things, but let me just make it very short. He broke up.
He broke up with you?
He broke up with me. So I thought God
after 30.
After 30.
Wow.
So it was that year I was supposed to clock 30.
How did you feel was it different from breaking up with you after 25 or 26 or 24 or something? What's
Of course, very different, very, very different. Because I've had breakfast, I said breakfast, yes, breakfast breakups in the past when I was younger, but they weren't a big deal because I felt like I still had a lot of years ahead of me. But one thing he did for me after he broke up was, fortunately for me, unlike other people that would be broken, he helped me to really appreciate waiting period. Because at that time I knew that I had two options. It was either I kill myself, not literally die, like either I don't just do well, I become very useless because I'll be thinking, or I face the next move. So I decided to go with the later decision, which was to just focus. You know, some people will tell you that it don't happen, waiting for the next thing. That was, I just told myself that I'm not going to be crying and doing all the things that I was doing when I was 18 before I turned 30. If he's waking up, I fasted, so I believe that was God answering my prayer. So maybe the answer was that he was going to leave. That was what God did for me through that fast. So immediately broke up right after the fast. I just focused on my job and God.
those period? How was it for you?
I would like to call it just a roller coaster of, you know, bad, good, terrible, beautiful, and the likes. You know, those periods I became vulnerable to people I should not be vulnerable to. I got into relationships that of my parents should not even hear about. You know, I learned a lot of things that I actually really appreciate, and that's why I'm able to give out this value I'm giving right now. So the period was tough, it wasn't good at all, and that's why I have so much passion for singles waiting for a future partner, because I know what I went through and they were not palatable. So when I see people going through that phase, I want to like help them to manage it. Exactly.
And
so
that's what you do with your page right now.
Yes.
So you think people listen when they're in love?
It's not easy. You know, this morning when I was preparing for this interview, I remember the particular time that someone who was married and had the fear of God, had a relationship with God, called me and spoke to me like a brother and told me that I should leave the relationship. I did not take the advice. Like, I was asking myself, why did I not take that advice? Because he took it upon himself to tell me that this thing is not for you, it's not good for you, leave it. But I did not listen. In fact, there was a particular time that, you know, I'm going to be very straightforward with this. The sister of the person I was seeing then called me and told me to leave their brother. That was enough to say, like, if someone tells me today now that, oh, I want to advise, the sister of the person I'm seeing called me and said, we don't want you to be with our brother, I know how I'm going to take a person that if I break up right now. But then I didn't take, I was still trying to give it up, and those are the things I really want to help young people to see that it's not worth it. There are some things that you say, it's no point trying to say you want to work on it. So if adults, mature people spoke to me, I did not. So a lot of people actually don't listen. And when I wanted to start waiting, I didn't really want to talk about relationship initially. God knows that I don't like to talk about relationship, and the major reason is because people know what they want to do 100%. And they will do what they want to do.
Either way, I always tell people that when people come to you for advice, for the most part, they just want you to validate what's on their mind, especially when they're adults. For the most part, they already know what they want to do. Yeah. So for now, so would you say your experience, if someone comes to you now and, you know, how would you convince them to take the advice, or you just give them the advice and you hope that, you know, hopefully you take the advice?
Okay, so I thank God for the experience I had. You know, I just feel like it's just God ordained. It's part of my journey. Because when I see people, most of the times, if I have 10 people come to me for advice, 8 of them are things that I've gone through. So that's how I know that I'm actually doing what God has called me to do. Yeah. So when I cite examples for you, I think that's the best I can do for you. Because I can easily just quote a text, cite another person's example, cite somebody's example, and all of that. But by the time I tell you that this thing happened to me, I feel like that's the best I can do for you. So I don't do beyond that. I pray with you, I cite my example, and I tell you the repercussion. So if you feel that after that you still want to, I just pray that you don't learn the hard way, so that we can still correct it if there's any issue.
What would you tell someone in the waiting period right now?
Okay, so the first thing I would like to tell you is that you won't wait forever. You are not going to wait forever. It's a phase, and there is definitely a reason why God is taking you through this period. Embrace it. Embrace the journey, enjoy it, and live a purposeful single life.